What do you do when you are woken up in the middle of the night, are tied up, and your girlfriend is taken? You would call the police, right? Well, what would you do if they didn't believe you? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to my channel and Killer Concepts, the place where we talk about all things true crime. My name is Peyton. Before we get started, please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any future content. Today we are talking about a kidnapping case, but not just any kidnapping case. We are talking about the 2015 kidnapping of Denise Huskins. With it being over 9 years in the past, I am pretty sure some of you have heard of it, some even in comparison with the Sherry Papini case. Denise's story is something right out of your nightmares, and what makes it even worse is that when her boyfriend Aaron Quinn would go to the police saying intruders kidnapped his girlfriend, police at first didn't believe him. In fact, police looked at him like he was a suspect. As we discuss this case, please keep in mind that it does discuss sensitive subject matter such as kidnapping and sexual assault. So big trigger warning before you proceed. If you have not heard this one before, once we are done with this video, you will be enraged and amazed at what went on with this police department. More recently this year, a Netflix documentary by the name of American Nightmare was released about this case. This is the reason I have not posted until today. A lot of my information does come from this. I wanted to watch the docu-series before I put this video together. I already knew the case, but seeing some of the things you will hear in actual interrogation footage just puts it all in a completely new perspective. With that being said, I will try and keep my opinions out of this one for the most part, but it will be hard and that may not happen. We are victim advocates here, and all I can say is this couple was victimized to the extreme, including by the police. Okay, so sorry about that long intro. Let's jump on into this one. We are going to start the night of the kidnapping. On March 23rd, 2015, Denise Huskins was spending the night at her boyfriend Aaron Quinn's home in Vallejo, California. Both Aaron and Denise worked as physical therapists at a local hospital and decided to just spend the night together. They had been having issues, but by the end of the night, they worked it out, so they decided to stay together. But this night would turn into an absolute nightmare. At around 3 a.m., the two would be woken up by a bright light in their face and an electrical noise. The noise has been compared to that of a stun gun. Denise Huskins would tell ABC, quote, "I remember being asleep and hearing a voice and thinking it was a dream, but the voice kept talking, and I just remember my eyes shot open and I could see the walls illuminated with a white light that was flashing, and I could see a couple of red laser dots crossing the wall. And I could hear, 'Wake up, this is a robbery. We're not here to hurt you.' And in that moment, I just thought, oh my God, this is not a dream." End quote. Real quick, guys, before I forget, because I forgot to do it when I was filming, something that I missed when making this video is that the assailant also said that Denise was not their target. Their target actually was Aaron Quinn's ex-girlfriend. What's so weird about this is that she actually hadn't lived with Quinn for quite a while, and so it didn't really make any sense. I don't think it ever went anywhere, but that is what the assailant had told the couple. He told Denise that she wasn't his original target, but basically he had to take someone, and so he was taking her. Okay, now back to the video. A man would tell Aaron to lie face down on the bed and then would instruct Denise to bind his hands and feet before covering both of their eyes with blacked out swim goggles. When I say swim goggles, they're the kind you would see like an Olympic swimmer wear, the smaller ones. The lenses were wrapped in duct tape. The man would then get Aaron to give up their bank account information as well as the Wi-Fi password before making him put on headphones games that were playing calming music and telling him to take a mix of NyQuil and Valium. He would then be instructed to sit in a red duct tape square on the floor of his living room, being told that he was being monitored by a webcam in the corner of the room. The assailant would tell him that he needed to stay there for a couple hours before he was to get up, or they would know because of the camera. They would also tell him that he couldn't go to the police without risking Denise's life. Now that Aaron was in the chair, what about Denise? The assailant would put Denise in the trunk of his car while she was wearing the goggles, and he would drive her to a remote location. At this location, Denise would be held against her will for 2 days. So what was going on while Denise was in captivity? After Aaron had been left in the living room, he was forced to listen to a message that said the kidnapping and ransom was carried out by a professional group collecting financial debts hired by someone else. According to NBC, Aaron would say that he eventually fell asleep on the couch, and when he woke up, Huskins was gone. Now remember, he had been drugged, so that's why he was sleeping, demanding a ransom. He would end up calling the police, even though he was weary of it because of what was going on and what he had been told. But his brother, I believe, was an FBI agent or something, don't quote me on that, and he recommended that he call the police. So he calls the police and reports Denise missing. But this is when things would really start to get weird. As seen in Netflix's American Nightmare, Aaron Quinn would immediately start to be treated like a suspect in the disappearance of his girlfriend, Denise Huskins. If you have not seen the documentary, you have to watch it. The footage will absolutely blow you away. So first they take Aaron's clothes as evidence, and they give him prison clothes. In the video, you can hear Detective Mustard tell him he is not in trouble, they just didn't have anything else to give him. But I mean, just imagine sitting in an interrogation room, talking to the police, and being put in prison clothes. How would that make you feel? The police had also taken Aaron's phone from him, but they put it in airplane mode, and this meant that it couldn't have received any calls or texts while it was in airplane mode. I can't really wrap my head around this. Why would the police not want to allow the device to receive possible ransom demands? This case is just really hard to keep my opinion out of, like I said, and I think it's clear why. According to Oxygen, Aaron Quinn's mom would tell Dateline that he was given a polygraph 5 different times, put in jail clothing, kept in an interrogation room without much food and water, and forced to go over details again and again. They would even blood test him to make sure that he had indeed been drugged. Detective Mustard even told him that he failed the polygraph test, but that was a lie. The results were actually inconclusive due to his emotional state, but I'm sure, like we all know, you are not allowed to lie to the police, but they are allowed to lie to you. There are points in the interrogation footage where you can see the detective accusing Aaron of murdering Denise. They are nothing short of aggressive. They tell him that they know he did it, he killed her, and he needed to tell them where she was. Aaron was visibly distressed throughout the entire situation. He just wanted to find his girlfriend, the person he loved, and the police would not listen to him. Police tried to say Aaron and Denise were having trouble in their relationship since they had a disagreement over him talking to his ex-girlfriend. But when he told police that they were working through it, they just wouldn't believe him, and they would try and use all of this as a motive. Time magazine reported that Mustard suggested Aaron killed Denise in a domestic violence incident and then disposed of her body. They actually even brought his ex-girlfriend in and spoke with her too. Aaron Quinn would end up being held for questioning for a total of 18 hours. His brother Ethan would end up hiring an attorney by the name of San Russo to get him out of police custody. They would start to advise him on what he should and shouldn't say. The attorneys clearly could see that the police were trying to railroad him, but they believed him. During the first day that all of this was happening, the Vallejo Police Department would give a press statement saying that Denise was missing. They seemed to actually be on her side at that point, but that would all quickly change. Their spokesperson, Kenny Sparks, stated, quote, "We are treating this as a kidnap and ransom, and we are requesting the public's help in locating her," end quote. reported oxygen. While all this was happening, Denise's father was also speaking to the press. He wanted his daughter back. In American Nightmare, her mother and brother speak about how they didn't really know who to believe at the time. The police were trying to throw Aaron under the bus, and the family didn't really know him all that well. What honestly bothered me the most about the detective speaking with Denise's family, though, is something that they said to her mom. And I can't stop thinking about it. It blows my mind. When Denise's mom was asked if anything traumatic happened in her childhood, she would tell them that she was molested as a young girl. Instead of being sympathetic to that situation, the detective had the audacity to say that sometimes victims of that kind of thing will do things like this to relive the thrill of it. You honestly can't imagine how fired up I was when I heard that. I knew it was something they said, but hearing it in the documentary was so much worse. I mean, I paused the documentary and I called my mom and sister to talk about how ridiculous it was and how mad it made me. They said this to a mother, a mother who was missing her daughter. Seriously, how dare they say something like that? Not only about a missing woman, but a victim as well. It really is just disgusting to me. It wasn't until 33 hours later, after Denise had disappeared, they would finally get some kind of contact from her. A reporter with the San Francisco Chronicle at the time by the name of Henry K. Lee received an interesting audio file as a proof of life that was sent to him in an email. The police would play this audio clip for Aaron and Denise's family members to identify it as her. In the audio, Denise very calmly states, quote, "Okay, my name is Denise Huskins. I'm kidnapped. Otherwise, I'm fine," end quote. She then goes on to say how Blink-182 was her first concert and name a current event that would show the police that the audio clip was not only her, but was current. Anybody outside of the family were absolutely dumbfounded at how calm she was in the audio clip. However, as we know, everyone reacts different in these kind of situations in different ways. This was just most likely how she was coping with the ordeal she was in. 12 hours after this audio clip, Denise Huskins, 29, would reappear. On March 25th, her captor would release her 400 miles away from Vallejo near the Huntington Beach neighborhood she grew up in. No ransom had been paid, and the kidnapper would tell Denise that he had to drop her there as there were too many people looking for her in Vallejo. As seen on home surveillance footage, Denise made her way to her father's house, but she would see that he wasn't there. She would then go to a neighbor's house who would let her inside. This is when she would call the police. Once Denise was released, she would immediately be swarmed by the media along with the police, who would pretty much be shoving a recorder in her face. I have read a couple different accounts on what happened at exactly this point. I'm a little confused. What I got from American Nightmare is that the police were there waiting for her. I could have misunderstood this. The way the police department would treat her when she resurfaced is so upsetting. The following is information I got from Denise's point of view in American Nightmare. She gives the police her story about the home invasion. When they ask about a sexual assault, she would initially lie and say no, because as she was afraid if she told the truth, the kidnapper may have hurt her family because he did threaten them. The police asked her if she thinks this could happen again to her, and when she responds with yes, if I talk too much. The officers in her dad's area are on the phone with Vallejo police officers, and they tell her that they will basically give her immunity to tell the truth. And they say the same thing to Aaron. And so she immediately questions why and from what, obviously. This woman was just kidnapped. Why would she need immunity? Per the LA Times, the Vallejo police grew suspicious with Denise's return, questioning the fact that she reappeared carrying an overnight bag and sunglasses. Retired Vallejo Police Captain James O'Connell later said in a sworn statement, Huskins, quote, did not act like a kidnapping victim, end quote. Denise Huskins would end up calling an attorney by the name of Doug Rappaport. He would tell her to immediately come meet him when she did, he would convince her to get a rape kit. But when he would contact the Vallejo Police Department, they would say they would only do it if she came in and talked to them first. This is valuable and precious time being taken away from possible evidence that could be collected. I believe Denise had already showered. Well, she showered at her captors. And so there already probably is less evidence, but the longer police wait, the more they could be losing. While all of this is happening, the Vallejo Police Department announced that her abduction appeared to be an orchestrated event and not a kidnapping. In a press conference conducted that night at 9:30 p.m., spokesperson Kenny Park would state, quote, "Mr. Quinn and Miss Huskins have plundered valuable resources away from our community and taken the focus away from the true victims of our community while instilling fear among our community members. So if anything, it is Mr. Quinn and Miss Huskins that owe this community an apology." Today, there is no evidence to support the claims that this was a stranger abduction or an abduction at all, end quote. Vallejo Police Lieutenant Kenny Park said in a statement at that time, quote, "Given the facts that have been presented thus far, this event appears to be an orchestrated event and not a crime," end quote. I know what you're thinking. What is going on here? Vallejo Police would post all of this on their Facebook page, and members of the community would immediately start criticizing Quinn and Huskins, smearing their names through the mud. News outlets started comparing Denise to the lead character in the movie Gone Girl, starring Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike. According to Time magazine, the kidnappers would even email the San Francisco Chronicle to say that the couple was telling the truth. They would even include photos that corroborated the details of Denise's story. Quote, "We cannot stand to see two good people thrown under the bus by the police and media when Miss Victim F, Huskins, and Mr. Victim M, Quinn, should have received only support and sympathy," one email read. "We are responsible for the victim's suffering, and the least we can do is come forward to prove they are not lying," end quote. So before we go even further into this, let's discuss Denise's description of what happened and the events that happened to her, because they will be relevant as more evidence is uncovered. Denise would tell American Nightmare she had goggles put on her and she was drugged. When she was kidnapped, she was thrown in the trunk of a car. When the trunk opened, she was instructed to keep the goggles on so she couldn't see. Then she was led into a house and into a room. Here she would be secured to a bed with a zip tie and a bike lock. She was also drugged repeatedly while she was with her captor. While she was there, she remembers her kidnapper playing French music from the other room and trying to be really kind to her. He basically would say that he had to do it. The organization he was working for was giving him instructions. He would lead her to the bathroom and let her get showers. He was mistreating her, but he was also unusually kind for someone doing something like this. Like he almost felt guilty about it. But soon the unthinkable would happen, because he would tell Denise that he would have to have sex with her and record it. So if she went to the police, this organization he worked for, could release the tape on the internet. She closed her eyes and she let it happen. I mean, there was nothing else she could do. But then later on, he would tell her the tape wasn't good enough, according to the other members of the organization. This is when Denise would try and tell him about her past sexual trauma to try and get him to not rape her again, but this would not work. He told her they needed to make it look like it was consensual and like they were pretty much in a relationship. He would use tape on her eyelids this time because this would just make it look like her eyes were closed. Not long after this is when Denise would be put back into the car by her captor and then dropped off in the Huntington Beach area. This is where she would then start talking to the police, like I already went over. It would not be until weeks later that there would be a huge break in the case when it came to Denise's captor. I want to mention that the break in the case was no thanks to the Vallejo Police Department. They still were blaming her and Aaron Quinn, acting like they made everything up, but it was because of another police department. Oxygen reports that not long after 3:30 a.m. on June 5th, 2015, a woman would call 911 to report that an intruder had broken into her home. She would tell police that her husband woke up in the middle of the night to find a man at the foot of their bed. The intruder would tell the couple to lay face down in their bed, and he would tell them that he already had their 22-year-old daughter. Dublin Police Detective Rafael Alvarez would tell Dateline that her husband then yelled to her to go get the gun. They didn't actually own a gun, but he did this to try and scare the intruder away, and it would actually work. In his haste to get away, the intruder would leave behind zip ties, duct tape, a glove, and a cell phone. The investigators had been able to track this cell phone back to a man by the name of Matthew Muller. Today notes that the FBI's arrest warrant said that Muller was a 2006 graduate of Harvard University, and he had been a Marine from 1995 to 1999. He was a disbarred San Francisco immigration attorney. Muller would tell authorities that he had suffered from Gulf War illness and bipolar disorder. The Dublin Police Department would get in contact with Muller's mother to find out where he was fleeing to. She would tell them that he was headed to the family's South Lake Tahoe cabin. Here they would arrest Muller without incident on June 8, 2015. These detectives would also uncover horrifying evidence that would link back to Denise Huskins' case. Detective Misty Caruso is who Aaron and Denise say cracked their case and consider her their hero. She was the one who linked their case with Muller. At the crime scene, Caruso would find a pair of swimming goggles blacked out with duct tape and a blonde hair attached. She would be the one who flagged this to the FBI per People. They would also find Aaron Quinn's laptop in the home as well. Quote, looking back at all of the evidence, there was just no denying that this wasn't his first time committing a crime, Caruso told ABC News. Quote, I just had to figure out where these other crimes occurred. End quote. A month later, the FBI would apprehend him for the home invasion and abduction surrounding Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn. Quote, if Misty didn't connect Muller to us, I have no idea where we'd be, Quinn said in American Nightmare. We're lucky out of this, end quote. It wasn't just these two couples Muller had targeted. There were other women that Muller had attacked and raped. In the other cases, the women also described Muller as being super remorseful for what he was doing. There was even a time where he did not go through with his assault. He apologized and left. Denise and Aaron still say they believe there was more than one assailant that night involved in the incident, but Matthew Muller said that he used some kind of voice manipulation device to make it sound that way. This is something he would later say in court. Muller would plead guilty to federal kidnapping charges. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison in March of 2018. According to Today, 4 years later, he would be sentenced to 31 years in state prison after pleading no contest to 2 counts of forcible rape in the case. He also pled guilty to robbing an inhabited dwelling, residential burglary, and false imprisonment. Both of his sentences are to be served concurrently. The LA Times quotes, the next month, Quinn and Huskins each received identical letters of apology from the Vallejo Police chief stating that the department's comments had proved to be unnecessarily harsh and offensive, end quote. Quote, it is now clear that there was a kidnapping on March 23, 2015, that it was not a hoax or orchestrated event, and that VPD conclusions were incorrect, end quote, Police Chief Andrew Bideau said in the letters, end quote. In March of 2016, Huskins and Quinn would file a defamation lawsuit against the city of Vallejo and its police department for their vicious attacks on their character and the damage that they had done and had been done to their reputations. The police department absolutely dragged these poor people through the mud. Denise also blames the police for her second rape. Had they not had Aaron Quinn's phone in airplane mode, they may have been able to get to her before it had even happened. The couple would settle out of court for $2.5 million, but they continue to work as advocates against the department's and believe that this one should have been disbanded altogether. One of the problems with this case is that one officer working on it had been in a relationship with Quinn's ex-girlfriend. This could have allowed room for bias. Per Times, in a 2021 op-ed for Open Vallejo, Quinn stated, quote, "6 years ago, my wife Denise Huskins and I were subjected to the department's malice after she was kidnapped from my home," end quote, he wrote. Quote, "Without evidence, Detective Matt Mustard and others falsely accused me of murder while ignoring leads that would have led them to Denise. When she was released alive, we were immediately accused of fabricating her kidnapping and sexual assaults," end quote. In 2021, the new Vallejo Police chief apologized for the previous department's actions and stated that they are there to be advocates for victims. Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn are still together till this day. The two actually married in 2018, and they have 2 beautiful daughters, Olivia and Naomi. Denise believes their trauma may have brought them closer together, telling ABC News' Amy Rohrbach, quote, "You can go through any kind of trauma to where it leaves you devastated, and in a place where you just think, this is impossible to move forward from. What do I do next?" I think ours is an example of that. There is hope. It might take time and it might be a lot of hard work, but there is hope, end quote. With that being said, that was the kidnapping case of Denise Huskin. I don't have much more to say about this one, as I think I made myself pretty clear about how I felt about it and Vallejo Police Department. If I missed things, I am sorry. There was so much to this case. I spent a lot of time on it, but there is so much, and there's a lot of resources that you can watch. I think there's a couple really good like documentaries on it, but I really do recommend you listen to American Nightmare or watch American Nightmare on Netflix. It's interesting in the way that they formed it. So it's 3 episodes. The first one is What Happens, and is basically about Aaron Quinn once Denise is kidnapped. The second one is you learn about what was happening to Denise while she was gone. And then the third one really focuses on what happened to the couple when Denise resurfaces. 2 people were very hurt in this case, including by those who are supposed to protect them, the police. And I think we hear this way too much, and that's why we really need to work on our justice system. And that's why we talk about these cases, because if people do not learn about them, then they're not going to have any motivation to want to push for change. So that is all I have for you today. I wish Denise and Aaron continued healing, and I apologize for jumping around so much in this video. Please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any future content. If you have case suggestions, please send them to killerconceptsvlog@gmail.com or comment them down below. All of my social media links as well as sources are down below in the description box. And before you go, just remember that the world's most dangerous minds hide in the most unlikely places. Stay safe.